Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
Hey, time to find out who's funding this little operation.
Forgot my punch card. You got a second wind to dig into my private files, huh?
Yeah, see, I'm not into the whole mysterious benefactors thing. This whole operation is shady as hell.
Fine, go on then, dig away.
Admiral Picard? No way.
Yes, way. The Guild has a huge endowment from Jean-Luc. That guy loves mummies even more than you.
Oh, I was hoping for a Romulan, or at least a Xindi Cabal.
Hold on, you wanted to find something nefarious?
I think deep down I was looking for a reason to go back to Starfleet.
Are you joking? You just escaped all that.
I know, but I think I want to be a part of something that stands for the greater good.
Oh, and archaeology doesn't? It's a bit f***ing rude.
No, I mean, it's fun, but how many old brown pots do we really need?
All right, well, that's just even ruder.
Okay, so welcome to the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Which episode number is this, Dan?
Well, I think you should know the answer to that.
I do know the answer to that. I'm quizzing you.
It's 156. You know how I know?
How do you know that?
Why don't you tell them how we know?
I know it because I'm keeping track. I'm keeping track of the number of podcasts that we put out.
Yeah, I know because you told me.
Okay. Yes, this is episode 156 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. I'm here tonight with Dan, as per usual.
Mm-hmm.
As not per usual, Jesse couldn't join us tonight. He's on a secret mission.
So many secret missions.
Yeah, a lot of secret missions. He's protecting his nation. We're not 100% sure which nation that refers to, but whichever it is, he is protecting it. But we are fortunate to be joined this evening by a special guest, Tarek. Tarek, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
That's the other reason I knew it was episode 56, because you want to know why?
You almost said episode 111th
But I didn't.
birthday.
I know, but that's my favorite number to say. But I that's the other reason, because you know why? Because you want to know why?
Yes, I do know. I do want to know why.
Because that marks Tarek's 1 year anniversary. What's the best way to...
Okay, you've already got this very
I already
confused.
got this. I've messed it up. I'm trying to think of the best way to word
You entered
this.
into this with such confidence.
Well, there's a very specific way of expressing this thought I have, and I don't know how to use words to do it.
You haven't come close.
Okay.
No.
Why don't you give it a swirl?
All right. So look, a few episodes back, we were marking the fact that we had produced 150 episodes. And that because people are into round numbers, units of 50. What is it, a sesquicentennial? Is that what it is?
I don't know. You were the one who's all into that word.
I think it's a sesquicentennial. But anyway,
and anti-penultimate.
We were celebrating the 150th episode.
150th birth.
And it was our old friend Tarek who noted that, in fact, it might be more interesting to celebrate the 156th episode. Did I 150?
No,
150 something.
156th suffering fuckatash. Yes, 156th, because, as I recall, Tarek, because that would sort of represent 3 full years of weekly podcasting, correct?
Yeah, I'm a giant nerd, and 150 is like, oh, that's a nice round number, but 156, that's 3 times 52. That's perfect, and it's the season finale of Lower Decks.
And it aligns perfectly well with that's the episode we're going to be discussing tonight.
I didn't even know that was going to happen, nor did I know it would be the first episode of Prodigy.
Oh, that too, but we're not discussing that tonight.
We're not. We don't talk about that tonight. we talk about that another night. No,
we did one episode on Prodigy. I would like to do more.
Yeah, Prodigy's good.
Tarek, have you been watching Prodigy?
I have. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new episode? I haven't seen the newest episode yet.
I watched it right after Lower Decks.
Yeah, I was about to do that, but I was like, I have so much stuff I have to do. But I'm gonna get on that soon. I'm a big fan of Prodigy, and maybe we'll do like after the first season, do like a retrospective.
Retrospective.
Yeah, I don't know what you.
Is that a real word? I like that. That sounds like That sounds like you're in some laser future. Retrospective.
It does not sound. I don't agree.
Because it's funny because it has the word retro in it. So why would it sound like a laser
But why
future?
would retro make you think of the future?
That's what I was just saying before, as you interrupted me to say this thing that I was in the process of saying.
It's just something. I mean, confusing.
Dan is a very multifaceted person.
Yeah.
He can have those two contrasting viewpoints at the exact same time.
Right. I'm not limited by the
by the
direction
confines of normal society,
of direction
normal social conventions.
of chronological
Space-time.
Yeah,
Who needs
that-
that?
chronological direction is not something that I concern myself with too much.
All right. Okay. So,
Retro future.
all right. A couple things.
That's what the 80s is, though. Like when you talk about, like, you know, when those purple 80s futures, it's like a retro
The
future.
purple 80s future.
You
I
know.
know exactly what you
Yeah.
mean, by the way.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
we all grew up in the 80s. All right, so we'll get to discussing the episode momentarily, the season finale to Lower Deck's third season, title of which was The Stars in the Night. What was it?
The Stars at Night.
The Stars at Night, which is, of course, the line from the song about Texas. But we'll get all into that in a second. Just by manner of brief introduction, Tarek is a much more knowledgeable Star Trek fan, I think, than either Dan or I.
No pressure, though. None.
Yeah, no pressure. Don't worry. You're so far advanced than us. We couldn't come up with a question that would adequately test your knowledge. But yeah, we've known Tarek forever. Tarek, I think we've mentioned in the past that Tarek introduced us to Magic the Gathering. Certainly introduced me to Magic the Gathering, and using Star Trek as a tool.
The gateway. Yeah.
Yeah, as the gateway. Yeah, because we had you introduced me to that Star Trek: The Next Generation. Was it The Next Generation focused? Right, wasn't it?
Yes, it was originally.
The customizable card game, I guess they called it, right? The CCG.
Mhm.
And so we were playing that, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty awesome. This is really cool." And then you were like, "Oh, you think this is good? You should try this Magic the Gathering." I was like, "Okay, I don't know. I'll take a look."
Gee whiz, Magic. I don't even know what you're saying these words.
Thousands of dollars and hours later, maybe not thousands of dollars.
Like any good dealer, you start them with a free sample, and then
Yeah.
you can on the hard stuff.
Yeah, you get, oh man. So yeah, we still play Magic from time to time.
Dark, did you ever get into Spellfire? Wasn't that the other one?
No, I did not.
Yeah,
There was another one like that. Yeah.
See, I remember thinking Spellfire, that's a Magic ripoff, and then someone else was like, "No, actually, Spellfire came first," and I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's
well,
like Hydrox.
yeah, exactly.
Hydrox and
Yeah.
Oreos.
It's surprisingly similar, actually, Adam. So Star Trek TNG card game, you can play data. Now, is it? I can't remember if it was like would it be like different forms of data? Would be like
Dan is aggressively like making card placement motions with his hand.
would it be like, oh, I'm playing data, or would it be like I'm playing data playing cards, or I'm playing data? What was something funny that Data did? He's done so many. What's something funny?
Data as a cowboy.
There you go. Thank you. See, already helping me out.
Oh, man.
Keeping me from falling apart. Yeah, so I don't know. Was there just like one character card, Tark, or were they doing different things in the different cards?
There were variations, like you described, with the Data as a cowboy and Data as a
Nice.
saloon worker and such and such.
Right. One of these days, I'm going to get into the Star Trek TNG CCG.
A fistful of datas. I wonder if people still play that. One would imagine people still play that in some fashion, but I don't know how long it was maintained. I don't know that it still exists in purchasable.
It's stopped being officially made, but
Yeah.
there's a group of dedicated fans, because that's what happens with Star Trek. You get dedicated fans that do things, and they've been playing since. They just actually, I think, did world championships online, maybe even in
Oh.
person.
We'll have to look into that. Yeah,
Well, according to Amazon, you can buy some booster packs.
but you know,
Those are old and expensive.
old, yeah, unopened old booster packs. That should be interesting.
Booster packs.
Yeah, maybe they should bring some of that
Booster
back.
Star
But
Trek
the problem is these days they would do it in the digital format, and I'm not as big a fan of that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the meat of the discussion.
I played Hearthstone a bit too.
The meat of the discussion. We'll get into the meat of this. Why do I keep saying the meat of the discussion?
I don't know. You're really
Let's get into the meaty part of the
Are
discussion.
you hungry?
A little bit, yes. I would like
That would
some
explain
meat. Yeah, I wouldn't mind some sort of meat.
You want some meat?
Yes, I would like
You want
somebody.
you want a pepperoni?
I mean, I have some sliced pepperoni.
Do you want you want a sliced pepperoni on a pizza?
I fear that my attempt to get back on topic has been derailed.
Do you want to dip it in some red sauce?
I mean, no.
That's what I like to hear.
You're describing grasping a stick of pepperoni, an unsliced stick of pepperoni, and just sort of dipping it in some red sauce.
Well, first you slice it,
Okay, this is now the metaphor.
and then you put it,
I desperately want to distance ourselves from this metaphor.
and then you put it all over pizza,
All right.
and then you dip it. Just
Yeah,
the pizza.
I don't want a pizza. I would like.
But nothing
like
beats a pizza.
I don't know, like some steak or lamb or something.
Ooh, you want to dip some lamb into your mouth juice?
Okay. All right. Star Trek.
I don't even know what I'm going for with this.
I'm not clear on it either. Okay. Star Trek, Lower Decks, season finale. To what I would say, I'll defer to the opinions of the others on this podcast, but I would say was a very excellent third season, following up two very excellent the first and second season. I thought were also very excellent, but I don't know. I enjoyed this. The finale. What do you all think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It was I was thinking back to the first season. That was more of like your classic kind of like chaos going, and everything is flying around in chaos and people jumping around and then people blowing up and all this stuff. This was more like a ship battle, a super ship battle. So there was less insanity going on. But yeah, I was excited. There were a few people exploding here and there, which is always kind of funny to. Yeah,
is that your standard metric?
Yeah, I know. That's
how many people explode.
Now that I say it out loud, yeah, it did seem like that was, which is funny to say because I'm surprised whenever I see anyone exploding in Lower Decks, but it happens from time to time. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. They finally brought back Talin, so I don't know if we.
Oh yeah,
so which was fun. I think everybody's been waiting for. I don't know. Would you?
Yeah, everyone's been waiting for. Yeah.
What'd you think, Tarek?
I think that you're right there. It was not as chaotic as some of the other ones. I think it was a bit more definitive of an ending. Other ones were more open-ended, where you have the story of Boimler leaving or Captain Freeman being arrested. Here, there's a little tease because in the first there's the post-credit sequence, but the actual main story just kind of like, hey, happy ending-ish.
Yeah,
I damaged ship, but it's there.
I noticed that. I noticed that as well. A little more tied off for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point because like you said in the end of the third one, this one they still sort of led you. They still had something that they kind of introduced, but it's not like they have a plot that's leading you into the next season. Like you said, they tied it up, they finished it off. They weren't like, oh no, there's not really a directed cliffhanger. It's just like a general almost teaser, like, oh, here's something that might come next season, And
there's a couple of them with adding Talin to the crew, and then the post credit scene, and from previous episodes with other Boimler and Section 31. It's these little bits of threads that you can follow up on next season.
And potentially even Peanut Hamper and Agimus still floating around out there. Maybe they'll team up with Badgie. Who as we hinted at, we did see in the post-credit sequence, Badgie appearing briefly as somebody was retrieving the wreckage of presumably the Alito, and people have been debating this online who that might have been. I think probably I side with the group who suggests it's the Drukmani, because it just seems to be similar to other things the Drukmani have always been sort of slurping stuff up. They had a similar looking tractor beam. They have beef now with some people, so it would be interesting to see what goes on. But other people have suggested either the Romulans or the Borg are the two other folks that are suggested as having possibly acquired Badgie and the Alito wreckage at the end.
Yeah, I didn't take it as the Alito wreckage. I thought that was Rutherford's other implant.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That could be it too.
That's what I was thinking too. Exactly, because it looked like some kind of implant. Did Rutherford have another implant? Oh, I guess one got ripped out of his face.
Yeah, because that's where
Yeah.
And was that the first season, the end of the first season, where his face got ripped out?
That's a good point. I did not catch that. But regardless, does it? I don't know. I think it's Drukmani probably, but I mean, guessing is pointless at this stage because they're good writers and they manage to surprise us, even if they lay some clues for us. Like in this,
I think it's the Drukmani or the Borg or Section 31, and it'll be Guinan.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So last week, we mentioned that we made a big deal about the fact that they didn't say to be continued, right? Mm-hmm. And so we took that as sort of a sign that that some of the things they had set up in last week's episode, for example, Mariner going off and being an archaeologist for a little while, might play out for a little bit longer over the course of more than one episode, because it's a la the Boimler going over to the Titan, that sort of thing. Because it just sort of seemed like that, but nope. It seems like that storyline's been pretty much resolved, and the characters have been reset. Not reset back to ground zero. I just mean they've been positioned, is a better word. They've been positioned for season 4. Like what's going to happen in season 4.
And the passing reference to Brekka or I forget the name of the other place with the OR. Onaran and the Breen. That whole situation. It seems like apparent that was just kind of like. They put it to sort of like almost as a joke on the original TNG episode, and that's all it was meant for, was the Ornaran and the Brekka, kind of like a follow-up to the TNG, just briefly with no plans to come back to that. And the Breen, that was just kind of a vehicle, I guess, the Breen might come back.
I think the Breen will come back. That would be my guess, because I think...
But do you think they're done with the Ornaran and the Brekka thing? Do you think that was just like a passing reference?
Yeah, maybe directly. Mm. But again, you don't know. I don't know. They've been so good at like capitalizing on just the endless lore that's available in the Star Trek universe.
Kind of that recurring theme is that second contact idea of literally a second contact with something that happened on a previous series, be it DS9 or Next Gen, or who knows, maybe even Voyager at some point. They'll visit them, go see Neelix or something.
Yeah, they probably will.
Second contact with Neelix. Let's do that.
Oh man,
season 4. Let's go there.
If Jesse were here, he would call Neelix a space creep, and Jesse means that very sincerely. Yeah, I know. I fully agree with him. It's always funny how sincere Jesse is when because Jesse's very like, we're just having fun, and then it's like he's a fucking space creep.
I mean, does he have any redeeming qualities? I mean, he's nice to Tess, but for shady reasons.
Cass,
whatever. Cass. Kesterson.
He did have some value.
He's nice to his 2-year-old girl.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The whole reasoning behind it was shady, but he was nice. But did he actually do anything for her? Like positive? It seems like she. I don't know. No, I don't think Neelix ever did anything good.
Look, there are Neelix defenders, and I think that's great. And one day we should have an open debate, a lively debate.
The actor's great.
Oh, Ethan Phillips is fantastic, and he does a great job of being Neelix. I don't like Neelix is a character I get confused by, because he's sort of coded to be like you're supposed to like him and be charmed by him, but the way he's written and acted is that he's this terrible, awful creature who's the whole introduction to the Janeway and crew is to try to trick them. And anyway, we've discussed that before. We'll discuss it again, no doubt.
No.
I'm not entirely sure what that has to do with Lower Decks, but it does have to do with Star Trek. So
because we're gonna Lower Decks. Yeah, that makes me think of how many cameos. Anyone can be a cameo. We don't know. We don't know. It could be anyone.
Your tone was I know your tone was like you could be president. You could grow up to be president of the USA.
Will you be a cameo?
Anybody can be a cameo.
Will you be a cameo? And then I look at the screen and go, how about you? If we had cameras, I'd be pointing at the screen, and that means I'm breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. The fourth wall is that invisible... Okay, that's not going anywhere.
Excellent restraint on your part there, Dan. Excellent restraint. So obviously the second contact thing, I think that's an excellent point, Tarek. We've definitely seen it multiple times before. I think the other one that jumps out that was real fun was the one with the computer. What's his name? The other smart computer. Where that town of like Western type people.
Agamas?
No, Agamas was at a different one. But there's like the TOS episode that, what is it? Is it A Taste of Armageddon? I always forget this. It drives me nuts. Yeah. That's the one. That's the computer where they go back to that planet briefly.
Return of the Archons.
Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. But yeah, so I do look forward to more of that, and in other series, right? Because they've done a lot of TOS, they've done a lot of TNG, not a lot of Voyager in terms of the second contact action, right? Not that I can recall.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of hard to do that.
well, yeah, it is. But they could do it. Oh, man, that is tricky.
They managed to MVS with DS9 with the Wadi coming back because you have the logo.
Yeah.
That's a built-in way. But
Yeah. You know, I like the Deep Space Nine has been more just sort of direct references. I don't know. I'm just very excited when I watch an episode like I'm sorry, it's just like an exciting season. I enjoyed every episode. And
Do you feel like you're overstimulated right now?
I'm a little overstimulated because it's fun to watch just sort of consistently excellent Star Trek. I'm a big fan of all the Star Trek that's on now and stuff, but there's ups and downs, and there's stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work.
You're a big
as
fan
well.
of Star Trek. You're not a fan of big Star Trek.
No, I mean, if they'll pay me, I'll be a fan of whoever.
then we'll be huge fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whoever writes the checks, or
Yeah.
it just sends me an endless stream of bespoke, custom Starfleet style mugs and glassware. I could be bought for that.
Yeah, it's bar's kind of low. You settle for glassware.
I mean, you could say it's a low bar. You could say that I'm in a good position, sort of.
Oh, so you're better than us. That's what I see you're saying.
I mean, I wouldn't put it like that,
That's
but
what I
it
heard.
would be like accurate.
but it would.
Like in terms of just like how like zen I am, that like
Yeah.
my bribery level is at like custom glazery. Is that a word? Glazery?
I don't know.
I don't know. Sounds like
Sure.
it.
All I know is you think you're better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Okay. So,
The towel guy's name is Hans.
yes, we did discover a few things.
He likes to gossip.
He does like to gossip. We discovered
He's the
a few
gossip
things.
king.
Yeah, gossip king. It's weird to gossip while you're wearing a towel. Something about that seems like kind of sexual.
That's that's a good point.
I don't know why, but it does. It feels-
I
Gossip in and of itself can be. It's revealing of secrets. That's very
Yeah.
sensual and sexual. So yeah, it ties right in.
yeah,
I like that guy even more now.
yeah. When you're covered with just a sexy towel and you're doing some sexy gossip.
Okay, how about this? Let's talk about.
How about that?
Let's talk about.
Space stations.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
What's the deal with space stations? What are those things in the center?
What's the deal with space
They look. This
stations?
is my retro future. They look like they have skyscrapers in the middle, but those aren't skyscraper. There's like antenna or something, like the giant space station. And then
Antennae?
in the middle they have. You know what I'm talking about? Either of you?
Yeah.
You know how?
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of central core.
Yeah.
the thing.
It's got some doodads and stuff.
You got the doodads.
Why
going
is
up
this?
and down.
Why is this an issue for you?
Well, they look like skyscrapers, and I want to be like people live there, but nobody probably lives. Maybe someone lives there.
No, I think
They
people
have to
live
live
there.
there.
You think you think that's like a city, like for
There's
the
that cool bar in Star Trek 3 when the people are like, or is it Star Trek 3 or Star Trek 4?
No. I'm not talking about
Five,
I'm talking about
6,
I'm not talking about the space station
4,
itself. I mean
3. It's 3 when the Enterprise is coming
Yeah.
back,
I'm not talking.
and everyone's like, "Oh my God, look at how damaged the Enterprise is! What the fuck?"
No, I'm sure a lot of people
That's the
live.
exact quote from the movie.
it's like
I'm sure.
it's like Lieutenant Rand. She's like, "Jesus fucking Christ!"
I'm sure a lot of people live in space stations, but in the skyscraper portion, do you think
Yeah.
people live in there? Do you think they're just big antennas full of electricity
Oh,
and
they got
and
windows.
warp core and
If you got windows-
dilithium?
If you got windows, you got people.
You're talking about the top.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's people
Not the
up there.
whole piece.
Not the whole big fatty, the little skinnies that come
Right.
off the top.
Little skinnies.
Yeah, little skinnies. Little skinnies. That's like a candy
Off
bar.
the big fatty.
Off the big fatty. Yeah, exactly. I love all the
Douglas
little
Station.
all the little skinnies off that one big fatty.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something of substance here. We've just been jibber jabbering on about a bunch of nonsense.
Outposts.
You're supposed to pause and let me
Oh.
provide something of substance, because every time I try, I start this algorithm. There's like an algorithm here, and I'm putting the pieces into the algorithm, and then Dan hijacks the algorithm and puts in some
Okay.
bad data.
Let me seed your algorithm. Beep, beep, beep. I'm seeding your algorithm.
I don't like this at all. I really don't. Okay.
Seeded
Yeah,
algorithm
it's turned into
seeded.
Neelix.
Oh man.
Admiral Buenamigo,
Good friend.
which we discussed last week. We posited correctly as it seems, that he was up to no good and that he knew about the Breen and he was setting up the Cerritos and Captain Freeman the entire time.
But to the level of no good, we weren't quite fully aware of.
Well, we weren't sure. And here's what's interesting, because last week we said we couldn't be sure whether he was proper full-on Badmiral, like conspiring with some enemy or something.
Bad faith admiral.
Or if he was just sort of trying to get ahead with his career, with his pet project. It's a little, as it turns out, it's a little of both.
A little both. He made a good point, though, about how once you hit it, it's like this is like a good a reason why a retcon, maybe, even if
you're using lots of R words. Very rotic. You're very rotic tonight.
What does rotic mean?
Rotic.
What does rotic mean?
Rotic is that type of intonation where you pronounce the R's.
Okay.
So most of the United States accent is a rotic language.
So if a botic would be where you pronounce the B's.
A lot of the New Englanders are non-rotic.
Zotic would be Z's.
Nah, they're all like, it's hard to park your car at the yard. That's non-rotic.
That's aortic.
Okay, no, it's non-rotic is sufficient. Anyway.
Okay.
Continue, Dan. Continue your point.
What were we talking about?
I don't know. It was your point.
Oh, Buen Amigo. Admiral. Yeah, he made the good point that explains why all admirals are badmirals.
Yeah.
Is because once they reach that level, they hit a wall. Their career hits a wall.
Yep.
So they're just desperate to like get noticed at that point. And so they're all like up to shadiness because there's nowhere to go from there, you know? And
it is, although they're not overt about it, it's sort of it's making the point that when you live in a society where
society is like a really smart word.
When you live in a society where wealth is meaningless and where you get ahead in life not by earning more money or resources, but developing the resource of your reputation. In a lot of ways, that's great. It means people don't care as much about, hoarding all the money and screwing people over and stuff like that. However, you still have currency, which is your reputation, and Buen Amigo, as Dan just very nicely pointed out, gives a great reason why a lot of these folks are Tark, do you remember, what's the name of the admiral with the Pegasus experiment? I always forget his name.
Pressman.
Yes, Pressman, Admiral Pressman. Similar example, right? He had his little project, and he seemed to be even more of an asshole than Buen Amigo. Buen Amigo does seem a little bit more, I don't know. I don't know. He's a piece of shit, isn't he? It's hard to say.
He has some friendly moments, but then he's still, like, hey, this is going to go badly. Rutherford's telling you this is bad AI. Oh, I don't care. Here, have full independence.
Yeah.
It fights him back, as you'd expect, but
yeah.
There is that's kind of crossing that asshole threshold.
He goes
from being like, I'm trying to just make myself better to screw you guys.
Yeah, and you're right. He does get punished for that, but it's quite gruesomely and severely. I saw a number of people on the internet, on the old internet with a capital I. They have screen grabs of the moment he gets shot, and it looks like the TNG episode Conspiracy, where it's just you see all his organs on fire, and his face is all he's screaming and shit. I wasn't expecting that. His immediate death by his own creation, which was pretty intense, but hard to be too upset about it.
And then it sounded like he used his voice for the ship's voice, those Texas class voices. That sounded like Alito's, or not Alito, Buen Amigo's voice.
Yes, the Alito,
Corpus Christi, and the
Dallas.
It was the Texas versus California.
Yeah,
Texas class versus which makes sense, right? I mean,
yes.
Two big states that are one's this way and one's that way,
In the current time period.
What's the deal with Texas and California? One of them's this way and one of them's that way.
Yes,
Put them together, you get a space war.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
that's over space, because space is a resource. Geography, resources.
Well.
All right. How about this? Let's take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk about Captain Freeman's her strategy to defend the Cerritos, and by extension all the California class things. How's that sound? Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we will be right back. Okay, we're back. Are we ready to talk about Captain Freeman and her strategy for defending all the California class ships? which was to challenge the Alito to a race.
Well, first of all, I have a problem with the premise of this race. Because the very last planet in the race, there's going to be a time bottleneck there. Because the planet only appears at a certain time and it disappears at a certain time. And she was even like, hopefully they get there before it appears so we can get there too. It's like when you have the game show where there's like the final round and the final round is worth more points than the first and second round because there's always 3 rounds. Before you take the first and the second round and the final round is always worth more points than the first 2 combined. So it doesn't matter how well you do for the first and second round.
Okay.
The third round is all that matters. In this case, you
lost me there briefly, but then I get what you're saying.
Then I brought it home. That's what it's like riding a wave with me. It's like you think you're gonna lose it at some point, but I always snuggle you back in.
And then you just smash my face into the gravelly part of the sand.
Yeah,
it's all shells.
Oh man,
shells and those little tiny shells that get in your eyeballs.
And that's bringing some memories back. I almost drowned in Hawaii once. I should tell you about that sometime. Wasn't that exciting, but that's pretty much the story. It involved 2 waves. I thought the first wave. I'm going to tell you that.
I guess he's telling us.
There were 2 waves, and I ducked under one wave. Yeah, and the second, and when I went up under the one wave, I didn't know there was a second wave, and I exhaled, and then the second wave pulled me under, and I was like, I was like so tired.
All right, so I do think that you interrupted your own point. You were in the process of making some sort of comment.
Yeah, you're right. And I said I wasn't gonna.
It was about the race.
So if they get there too early, it doesn't matter how well they do in the first and second planet if the third planet hasn't appeared yet, right? You know what I mean?
Yes, I hadn't considered that.
They should have
That's actually a big problem.
Yeah, they should have either made it the second planet or just not included it at all or something like that.
I'll say my issue with it was, although again, as per usual, I fully understand the dramatic reason they did this from a writing perspective, from a storytelling perspective, but from an actual wanting to evaluate 2 disparate programs that are meant to fill a similar niche, whatever your preferred pronunciation.
Task.
Yes, that have the same sort of task profile. If you're attempting to evaluate both of these programs, you don't set them on a race to each other to duplicate the efforts at each of these planets. That's what didn't make any sense to me. And unless I'm misreading something, it just seemed to be ludicrous. And again, I understand it in world. It was fine. I'm not complaining. This is a nitpick, but I was like, they should have had just similar tasks, but at different planets to actually test it. Otherwise, what are they putting like 2 of everything at every place? It was
weird to think that they could they could beat the Texas class in what is essentially a race of placing resources. Placing resources is something a robot can do pretty much just as well. You're placing a big thing in a giant field, like that's not something you need really people for. I thought they were going to do something like with the Galadorians. When they meet the Galadorians, you notice that they forgot something. What's the most important part of Second Contact? It's the people. The people are the most important part of Second Contact. Yes. Nobody wants to greet a ship. They want to be greeted by the ships inside the ship.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They want the ship to open up. Yeah, and the things to come out, and they want to say hello, and they're like, hey, we're making each other feel comfortable, and we're friendly. Robots, where's the love in a robot like that?
And remember in the Strange Energies...
There could be, but there isn't when they presented it.
In the Strange Energies episode, if I recall correctly, that's the one where they were wrestling with what phone number to pick. And they were not happy with they were from a culture that had numbers meant something very specific, so they kept like not agreeing to what phone numbers. I think Commander Ransom was trying to get them assigned.
Yeah.
And it had all the pads with the different numbers.
Yeah. Typical Star Trek style. Yeah, you had to have a million different pads for each one. But yeah, you need to have the people there, or at least I don't know, a nicer computer, because we didn't see the Alito do much of anything other than sort of replicate and plop down shit.
Well, right. That's what I mean. Like, it's possible to make a friendly computer, to have a bunch of datas. That would be so cute to have a bunch of datas. But the way they presented the Alita, I didn't mean to disrespect. That was reductive for me to say a bunch of datas would be cute. I didn't mean to disrespect data like that. It
like commander datas, a bunch of commander datas,
some admiral datas. How come there never been any admiral datas?
Because Data died.
Oh man.
I mean, I don't know if that's a spoiler because he's done it a few times.
Yeah, kind of like Batman or whatever, Robin or whichever. I think it's Robin who's the one who keeps dying. Yeah, so right, they but it turns out the the problem was the computer was somehow less accurate than the humans because it didn't check for life on a planet, which, I mean, you'd think the computer would catch that, but I don't know.
The weakness of this episode, and it's a minor weakness, but this whole test is the test is designed to make the Alito look good, and it's ludicrous from any kind of realistic perspective. But we needn't let reality disrupt our cartoon.
No, and in fact, what you could say is that this would represent a greater problem of having one entity, one person, one entity in charge of a fleet of ships like this, because even though you have admirals that control, captains that control crew, you still have that human element. I mean, mutiny is always always an option, right? They always talk bad.
Well, that's what happened with these 3 ships. Actually, they effectively mutinied, right?
Well, right, but like, okay, yes, you're right, but that was at behest. Am I using this word correctly?
At the behest.
The behest of Buen Amigo.
No, but they mutinied against him.
Oh yeah, they did kind of, didn't they?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
because he put them in independent mode, which when I watched the first time I watched the episode, that was the other nitpick I was going to have is I was like, why does he put them into independent mode randomly? But then on the second watch, I kind of gathered, I was like, oh, okay. Cause like the whole point is he's trying to get out of this problem, cause Freeman's contacted him and he wants them to attack them. So he's trying to put them in a mode that doesn't, it's not him ordering them to destroy the Cerritos.
Then what they should do is they should put a bunch of robots. It should be manned by the Alito, the Texas class should be manned by a bunch of robots in the ship, and the robots are each in independent mode. That way you can simulate some kind of ship build up with an organism.
Probably cheaper just to do that with people.
An organism of competing decisions.
People are robots that are just sloppy and squishy.
I mean, that's a discussion altogether, but I see your point. No, but that comes full circle as to why the Cali class works better, because you don't want some central force controlling everything in that. Well, I guess
you don't. Look, here's
the
the thing. I don't personally have an issue with this story structure because they were trying to get you to a certain place, and I always argue that you should go for what's going to make for the better story. You're allowed to do whatever creatively to get yourself there.
But what if it's so unbelievable that it makes for a worse story?
Well, here's the thing. That can be true. I personally wouldn't rate this episode as that.
I would not either.
What I'll say is it's really nice when they manage to avoid that. Like when they make it so that it is kind of awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess any minor disappointment is in the fact that Lower Decks so often is able to avoid falling into the trap of doing the sort of plot convenient thing. Every now and then, sure, but like I think a good example is the episode where the Kurtwood Smith was holding a party for the senior staff. And wanted the ensigns to be witness to all their glorious achievements, but basically it was a communications problem thing where they thought they were under some sort of trial of some sort. That was really funny, right? That was like a good twist on the thing, and everything worked out.
Oh, right, yeah, that was a good episode.
Right, it was very silly, very extreme, but it also kind of makes sense internally with a Star Trek logic. This is pushing it a little bit, but.
Sometimes you try to get around that narrative and be a little too creative, and you're only left with that one point of we have to go the expected way.
Yeah.
Like showing the human element of stopping. Okay, this might be alive. It was entirely to that point. I agree with you earlier where you're saying they should have been 2 different missions that were the same task but different locations. But the writers, I think, wanted to get to that point of you need that human element of caring that you don't necessarily see from AI.
I think part of the issue is that the way they wanted this story to go was to have the Alito win, basically, right? And then have that win be undermined by something that happened. If this was sort of TNG or Deep Space Nine or something, it wouldn't have gotten to the point of the Alito winning. What would have happened is there would actually be some moral dilemma. It wouldn't in this case, it turned out that the chemical signature that looked like life turned out not to be life. They would have, I think a previous Star Trek, the older Star Trek, 90s era Star Trek would have had it be life. And then that's what the whole conversation would have centered around. But that would be a different story, right? They're not telling that story, but that's kind of like you almost expect it to go that direction. So I think, maybe it was a little confused a little bit, but again, it got you to the point of the story, which was really about the characters and them, Freeman, etc., the rest of the crew standing up for the California class and for the idea of a crewed Starfleet ship. Although, the one admiral at that one, she makes the point. She's like, when Freeman is like, Starfleet's all about like people meeting people, kind of like you were saying, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
But the other admiral's like, yeah, there's plenty of crewed ships. Don't worry about it. We can have some automated ones, which that's not a bad point.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
You could argue against it being a good point in the context of Second Contact, but it's not a bad point more generally.
Yeah, didn't seem like they had to retire the whole Cali class to do so. But I was looking at those stats for the Augmenic 9, which is the Brigadoon planet. I was comparing it with Earth's dimensions. It's just like Earth.
What do you mean? It's just like Earth?
It's got a density of 5.522 grams per something or other. Density.
Is this on Memory Alpha?
No, this is on when you look at the episode and pause it on Augmenic 9. There's all these stats. So it says there's 5.522.
See, Tarek, he's doing screen grabs.
Grams per centimeter cubed, which Earth is like 5.51, which is strange because the gravity is 980 centimeters per.
Well, that is strange.
Per second squared on Augmenic 9.
Excellent
And
point
on
there.
Earth, it's 980.665. So they're essentially the same, but the radius is quite different. The radius is 5,000.
Oh, that would suggest something different about the mass, about the density.
Well, the density, right, but the density is comparable. It's 5.522 on Augmenic 9, but 5.51 on Earth. But
that might be an inconsistency too far.
But the radius is 5,834 kilometers in Augmenic 9, but it's 6,371 kilometers for Earth. So I just don't. Maybe the numbers do add up, but I'm skeptical that the numbers. Someone should do the math and figure out if these numbers add up.
Yeah, someone ought. Someone ought to.
Someone ought. There are no natural satellites of Augmenic 9. That'd be hard to do. How hard would that be to have a planet?
How hard was it?
How hard it would be to have a planet that phases in and out like that?
You're not making any meat jokes now?
How hard would it be to have a planet phase in and out of existence or the dimension or whatever and have a natural satellite that did the same? Do you think that would be unlikely?
I mean, my default response is that they're both such absurd concepts that I think differentiating between the two, I don't know. It depends which mechanism you're applying.
What kind of meat do you like in your pasta?
What kind of mechanism are you applying? Well, I don't know, like a lamb meatball. I mean, I like
you love
pork,
lamb.
I mean, I like a pork meatball, but I mean, lamb is pretty fucking tasty. Is the thing.
That's true.
I mean, pork is fine, but
pork is mork, but lamb is bam.
All right, that's fine.
We gotta have the sound effect where we have this car screeching to a halt.
Have the starship screeching to a halt.
Right. Just blows up
like in Spaceballs.
Yeah. She goes at one point. Freeman goes, "Maximum warp me,"
Yes.
which is like
I like that.
It's not quite an adverb, but it is an adjective and a verb because it's like warp me is like the verb, and then maximum warp is the adjective.
Maximum warp.
Was it sort of like an adjective verb portmanteau? Portmanteau? Because it's like it's like you're combining the first word of one phrase with the last word of the second phrase.
Well, her phrase is warp me. Right?
Well,
that's her phrase.
Right, that's
the
verb.
And then she wants maximum warp me.
Right, so the maximum warp is an adjective. Warp me is a verb. Maximum warp me is a portmanteau of both of them.
I don't think it counts as a portmanteau, but
no, it doesn't because it's more than one word.
But I do.
You said but.
I smell what the Dan is cooking.
Don't smell that butt.
Ugh.
So yeah, she says warp me all seriously in this episode too. Speaking of butts, Boimler is really good at swiveling his butt.
Boimler. Yeah, he's always been good at wiggling his butt around. Why do you think all the girls on the raisin farm are chasing after him?
Yeah. Yeah, like his ransom impression, and the power walking when he's doing that power walking that one episode or whatever they call it, the Starfleet.
Yes,
walking.
Yeah, he said Section 31 does that type of walking.
Yeah.
Boimler's and I presume, I mean, they must be Jack Quaid doing these impersonations, right?
They must be Jack Quaid. They must be Jack Quaid. It's like They Might Be Giants song. Remember that song?
Yes, of course I remember
they
that song.
They Might Be Giants.
I don't understand what's
They
wrong
might be
with
Jack Quaid. Sorry. Okay. I'm all the sillies are out.
I apologize, Tari.
Sorry, Tarek.
I mean,
I'm used to it.
I know. You know that.
Isn't this just like old times, Tarek?
Very much so.
Boimler doing the impressions was great. I think we should at least briefly discuss sort of the culmination, at least up till now, of the bold Boimler, right? Again, this is another episode where it's not sort of overtly mentioned, but there's evidence of the bold Boimler there. And I think one of them is him doing those impersonations, right? And doing them so enthusiastically. And Jack Quaid just doing them very well, right?
Yeah.
Especially the ransom one was great with the Barcelona joke.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the episode, when Boimler is the one who is like, shut the fuck up. He's like, shut up, listen to Shax.
Oh, right. And Freeman's all like, what?
Yeah, at first she's thrown, because old Boimler would not be doing that.
No.
He would be making it's the classic error in terms of leadership of like, if you're the kind of leader that just screams at people all the time, or if you're the type of follower who is nervous about you're interacting with a leader, you may not get ahead because Boimler was too sheepish. He was too shy. He didn't want to stick his neck out, and he didn't understand you kind of have to stick your neck out. Now, bold Boimler knows you got to stick your neck out to help save the day.
Boimler kind of goes through a wave, because he has that bold Boimler moment you said of doing the impressions. But when he hurts Shax's feelings, old Boimler comes, oh no, I need my bridge buddy. I want that approval of the bridge officers. And then back at the end, it's like, shut the fuck up and listen to Shax. It's back to that bold.
Yeah. It's like the writers remind us a little bit about where he's been.
Well,
and then bring him back to where he's advanced to. Because again, like, Tarek, like you were saying before, this episode does sort of close things off a bit, but it positions the various people for what's going to go on next, and it's different than where they were at before. Mariner's at a different place, and Boimler's at a different place. Tendi and Rutherford, they're all like now in different positions, but very clearly defined and things that make sense with their characters.
do you think Shax was so hurt because it was bold Boimler doing it, or do you think he was just more like, or do you think it was more just
bold Boimler?
Bold Boimler is making fun of him, or do you think it was just because it's funny, the idea of having this this sort of like
But
what was that? What was that? What's going on?
I'm just waiting to hear the rest of your point.
You keep. I'm not doing it. You're making some weird noise. I don't know. I don't know what's happening right now. Okay, or do you think it's funny?
Do I think what's funny? Hey, what are you doing there?
What are you doing there? To have this. Do you think it's more funnier to have a traumatized Bajoran? Because I don't know. Shax has got to be wondering.
Nothing funnier than traumatized Bajorans, who at least partially represent sort of a Holocaust metaphor.
Right. So shit. Well, I wasn't gonna go that far, but now that you say it, I feel bad. But
it's making it awkward.
Because like, why is he so affected by? I know because it's funny. That's why he's affected by Boimler. But do you think he's just kind of like, what do I have to do to earn people's respect? You know, he fought off an insurgency, and then this punk kid is just kind of like, making fun of him. So you think there's two ways you could go with that. You could either be like, I fought off this crucial shit, nothing bothers me anymore, or you could go the other way.
Nobody bothers me.
Or you could go the other way with it and say like,
that's
I know, Jesus
for the
Christ.
Taekwondo,
Yeah,
Junri
I know. Could you waited 5 seconds?
I wanted to explain to the audience because we do legitimately have an international audience. And the people down in New Zealand or Australia are not going to understand about Junri.
Well, that's why you could have waited 5 seconds to.
No, it was my error.
It had to be explained right then.
Yes,
and there.
it was my
so
error dipping into such a fairly hyper local reference. I mean, even people outside of
I was gonna say
metropolitan DC area probably would not be familiar with that tune.
Okay, all I was gonna say was either Shax could take the route of saying, "Hey, I've done all this crazy, awesome, brave shit. I don't need to worry about some asshole making fun of me," or you could go the other direction and say like, "I've done all this awesome shit and like I still don't get any respect." Like, Rodney Dangerfield or something.
He fought in the resistance. He saved the ship, died saving the ship.
Yeah.
All the other things.
He went to the Black Mountain.
And no one listens to him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one perspective. I kind of took it as in it was even, I don't know geographically, philosophically how to position this.
Yeah, because philosophy and geography are so similar.
Okay, you'll get what I'm saying.
I hope so.
I
should hope
you're
so.
describing him, his hurt, Shax's hurt,
As being more in the butt.
No, being based, at least in some proportion, to his reputational damage, right? Or sort of how people view him, which I think makes sense. I was sort of reading it as just sort of a more basic sensitivity, which I think they've shown Shax to have before. He's the classic tough guy, but he's also very sensitive, which is why he always calls people the baby bear, and he's always hugging people and stuff, which is a sort of a Bajoran style thing, to be kind of tough, but also like really sensitive and not necessarily worried about his ego, but more about like his heartbone, you know? The heartbone.
Well, yeah, the heartbone is important. I think
His paw. That's
right.
Sort of makes much more sense.
Yeah, you're totally on point.
He doesn't want to have like a weak, sad paw.
Was the first time we got real sensitive Shax was when he died and came back to life? Was that?
No, I don't. Well, I'd have to go back to the first. But I think in the first season, going back to the second episode, you at least got hints of him. With the bear, whatever they call the security people. The Bear Club for men, or I think it's a Bear Club for anybody actually, because it's Starfleet.
Yeah,
They're progressive.
They would be progressive.
But Bear Club for men is funny because of. Do you know why that's funny, Dan?
Because of the Hair Club for men.
Yes.
In Australia, they have NADS. That's what Hair Club for men is in Australia. It's NADS.
No, I thought isn't NADS the like Nair?
Oh, we might.
Oh,
they both have. Yeah, you're right. They both have.
That's where you get rid of hair.
That's right. They both have to do with hair, though. Yeah, you're right.
It has to do with hair, but yes, I think one is a chemical hair dissolver, and the other is a.
In the U.S., we have
hair thinning company or something.
Hair Club for men.
Hair Club for men. I don't know if they're still around.
Hair restoration.
Yes. Yeah. All right, but you were saying, Dan, or not? It's about time for a break.
Well, I was wondering if has Shax actually. I want to listen back now and see if Shax does always suggest that they eject the warp core. Is that an ongoing joke that I missed? Because they were like,
I think
Shax always suggests that
he's definitely said that at least once before in my memory. Now I'm not going to stand firm to that because that could just be this episode tricking me, but I don't think so. I have memories.
That's good. You have memories. That's what helps make us who we are.
Well, I mean, you can't. First of all, you can't trust your memory. Every time you recall a memory, you rewrite the old memory, and it's recontextualized with the experience and knowledge that you've had in life thus far. So fuck memories.
This is smart moment with Patrick.
But I do think that my memory of him previously mentioning the warp core. Ejecting. I think that's true.
Worf would always suggest that they fire on him.
Yes.
Right.
And it was never listened to.
Never once.
There was that episode. What was that? It was the episode, with Geordi and Ensign Rowe when they phase out. This episode was called like Time Phase Fun.
Time Phase Fun. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The next phase. There's that scene where they're helping out the Romulans, and we talked about this in the podcast. It was not too long ago, right? And Riker and Worf are on the Romulan ship. They're trying to help them, and Riker's all like, "Oh, they need some computers." And Worf is like, "I recommend we give them some old computers." And Riker's like, "Good idea, let's do that." And then Worf is like, there's like a pause, and Worf is like, "Thank you. Thank you." Actually, I know what it was. I was on the Green Shirt podcast doing
the
next phase. We did the next phase, but that was like last year or something. So that I was thinking of when I was on the Green Shirt podcast, guesting over there, doing the next phase.
Oh, so you were right about the episode. You were wrong about which podcast you were on when you talked about
it.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've hit the big time.
He's so much better than us. He does multiple podcasts.
Yeah, that's what I took away from it.
We've hit the big time. I've leveraged my relationship with this podcast to bigger and better things. All right, how about this? Let's take a quick break, and then we can wrap things up with anything else that remains that should be discussed about this episode. So we will be right back.
Okay.
All right, we're back.
Can you fire at warp?
Okay, so this has been an interesting discussion online. A number of people were saying, so here's the deal. This is one of those things it's a much more interesting conversation than it might originally appear to be. So
I'm glad I asked it.
Starships, Federation starships, and other starships have frequently fired phasers while at warp. On Voyager, I think TOS, probably TNG, Enterprise for sure.
Well, if you can fire phasers, can you fire photon torpedoes?
Okay, all right. So here's the deal. This is part of the whole. This is part of the core of the whole debate, right?
Open a can of worms.
Oh man, what have we done?
So, and I'm trying to, in an unbiased way, relay what the sort of the basic structure of the debate on the internet is. It's because it's okay. If you're flying at warp, shooting a phaser, a light-based weapon,
Okay, here we go.
doesn't make any sense, right? So I think it's the TNG technical manual, but it could be other technical manuals as well.
Are these technical manuals generally recognized as canon?
Well, okay, let's not even go down
Yeah.
there. That's I don't know. We could cause a whole civil war if we bring that topic up. But they are written by people. You know, the TNG technical manual was written by Rick Sternbach, and you know, there's sort of a canon, tangential canon light. I don't know what the
Canon light. Diet canon.
if there's an appropriate term for that. But the point being is that they're kind of like,
Canonita.
because that's where the technical manual is where we got the citation ops, for example, decades before they actually portrayed it or referenced it or you know, on an actual Star Trek show.
That's a good point, Patrick.
So there's that for sort of the basic logic of or it's purported to be logic saying you can't fire a phaser at warp because not only does the technical manuals say that, but because it's ludicrous because you're flying faster than the speed of light. So how can you use a light-based weapon? That's crazy. Now that argument somewhat falls apart because you also cannot fly faster than the speed of light. The concept of warp speed as portrayed in
But
Star
as
Trek
we
is
know
ludicrous.
as we know from Event Horizon and other movies that have shown this demonstration, if you take a piece of paper, fold it in half, and poke a pencil through it, you have warp.
Yeah, but then you go.
That's how you go to warp, is you poke a
But you
pencil
have
through
to- you have
folded
to-
piece of paper.
You have to traverse hell in the
Oh
in
yeah,
the
I forgot
intervening
that
parts.
part. You
But
gotta fit hell in between the paper folds.
but Star Trek warp is different. Star Trek warp is you fly real fast.
You don't take a string and scrunch it up and then cover it in duct tape and then like throw it at someone.
What?
Well, that was the early warp.
That was the
But
early-
later warp. You have a bubble around yourself.
So it's much cleaner now.
yeah. So
yeah,
that's
so
like
static warp bubble around you.
Yeah, that's much better.
That's why Captain Archer's dad was a genius because he was like, you know what? Let's quit with all this duct tape and string. let's try to
make a bubble.
Let's try to make a space bubble.
The problem is the bubble kept popping at first, so they had to figure out how to keep it from popping. You don't want your warp bubble to pop.
That's true. So now, where the photon torpedoes come in is that people have no problem, generally speaking, with photon torpedoes being used at warp because they often have warp drives themselves, right? We've known there to be photon torpedoes.
Floton torpedo. That's what you call a photon
Flossed
torpedo
in
that isn't
paradise.
moving. It's a floton torpedo.
Floton torpedo.
One that hit the ocean. It's a floton torpedo.
Say it a few more times.
Well, first I said it was not moving, but then the second time I said it was in the ocean. They're both floton torpedoes because one is not moving in the air, the other is floating on. Now you just made me explain the joke. Thanks.
I didn't know. The best part is I don't think you did. Okay. Photon torpedoes can either have their own warp drives or they can have like a warp. I don't know thing that.
Why would you
they're
want to
launched
put a
at
warp
They
core?
can keep going.
Why would you
nowhere.
want to put a warp core on a torpedo? That seems kind of like
to blow some shit up?
That's a lot of
fast.
That's a
far
lot of.
away.
That's a lot of to do for us. Thing that blows
well,
up.
You can't get too bogged down. by
And then
Star Trek
if you have
technology.
a photon torpedo with a warp core, then why do you need for the photon part? Because warp cores just blow up on their own. So it seems like all you have to do is shoot a warp core at someone, and you're probably good to go. So can you just shoot a warp
Like they
core?
did here.
Yes.
Shoot a warp core at somebody, and the warp core can warp itself around until it hits someone and explodes.
Okay, first of all, I don't think it can warp itself around.
Well, it's a warp
Second
core.
of all, then you don't have the warp core, so unless you've got a spare.
No, that's what I'm saying. But you're already talking about putting a warp core on a photon torpedo.
Yeah, but a little one.
Yeah, so just get rid of the photon torpedo part and just fire a warp core. Get a series of warp cores to fire people.
Well, Dan, I think you found the one inconsistency in Star Trek.
I think I've
All
just
of
made.
Star Trek.
I think I've made all of Star Trek better, actually. So
I think so as well.
okay. Anyways, Back at the ranch.
That debate.
So the debate says that the phaser
is ongoing.
The phaser's light, so you can't make that happen. But the photon torpedo can warp around because you can make it a warp-ton torpedo.
Yeah. Okay.
Torpedo.
I think it was the motion picture where firing the phasers while at warp caused something weird. It was like the wormhole that.
It might be.
Yeah,
either that or they tried to use the phasers to like get out of the wormhole or something. I can't remember.
Get out of the wormhole.
Yeah, get out of the wormhole.
What are you doing
I guess I think the main takeaway from that argument, I think this would be the reasonable position, and that's a subjective position, no doubt. But I think the reasonable position is is that, come on, who cares? Because it's happened a bunch of times on Star Trek. I would understand the debate a little bit more if it were literally the first example of them ever firing phasers at warp, but it's not. So why fill time with on the internet with this? We've got other things to discuss.
There's limited space on the internet, man.
Limited space. So one of the other things to discuss, for example, is what Mariner was doing this whole time. She's an important part of this episode, but we only see her. There's only a few little bits and pieces with her. Mm-hmm. What do you think about how quickly this story was resolved? Do you think they should have stretched it out a little bit, or did it work out all right?
I think that if they had done it a little bit earlier in the season, it would have made sense to stretch it. But because they were trying to, like you said, put all the pieces in place for season 4, and you want them all still together on the Cerritos at the end, you had to wrap it up quickly and basically get off with it just being a joke of, Admiral Picard loves archaeology. He funds all this.
Yeah, I did like that part. I thought that was great because I think, of course, everyone's immediately suspicious of this person. And you think, are they setting up a story where it's going to be Petra Aberdeen is tricking Mariner and taking advantage of her to actually steal stuff and is getting money on the side or something? But in typical Lower Decks fashion, they know that that's the expected trope, and they undermine it by being like, no, not only is it innocent, it's fucking Admiral Picard's like little weird side project. It's probably where all his vineyard money, whatever the latinum he gets from his vineyards, he helps fund these fun archaeological activities.
Yeah, like Tarek said, I don't know that they needed to stretch it out considering the time they had left, and what would they have really added that would have progressed the story at this point. And and it makes me wonder why they kind of introduced the whole concept to begin with, but maybe we'll see more Petra Aberdeen in the future. That's all I can think is, it provides a little flavor, allows Mariner to take a step back and reappreciate the Cerritos. So that's kind of nice because that whole thing.
That all worked for me. Yeah. It was a little bit abrupt, but
I didn't bother. I wasn't actively like, I thought this was going to go on for much longer. I was honestly, in a way, part of me was relieved to see her back at the ship, too. So
I agree. And I think it's also important because although Lower Decks does have these
Cerritos,
these little arcs, these little sort of mini arcs and stuff, there's character growth and progression. It is an episodic series, right? So you do want it to maintain the hop in and out at any given time. And if somebody's away from the ship for too long, you can do it, but you're starting to stretch it a little bit. On the other hand, I think Deep Space Nine had a good model for it where they maybe would have these little stretches, except for, of course, towards the end of the series. But I'm thinking of the, beginning of season 5 or beginning of season 6 of Deep Space Nine, where you have these, again, 3, 4, 5 episode arcs, but you can still kind of hop in and out of the episodes, but they do work better if you sort of view them in an order. My guess is they're going to continue to sort of default towards more episodic, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Aberdeen,
following that same arc of Strange New Worlds, where you are episodic, but you do have character storylines that are serialized across.
Yeah, and a little bit, and I think that it's not that didn't happen in kind of older school Star Trek, but I think it was less intentional, right? So you would have a certain degree of very slow character growth in terms of Data or Riker or Picard, etc. on, say, TNG, but it was more incidental and less deliberate. I think they're thinking ahead more nowadays. They did that with Deep Space Nine, but that was sort of the little, it was Star Trek side piece, because then everyone was back to, on Voyager, and Voyager also definitely had character changes and growth. But again, I think more incidental over time, just because of just the way the nature of writing for a TV show for 7 years works. Here we were seeing character growth over the course in Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds over the course of just like the first season, right? So, and they're getting better and better at it. Certainly the Lower Decks writers, I think, are improving as they go.
I like that Aberdeen was condescending towards Mariner about talking about money, and at first it's kind of like she's talking to Mariner like she's a child, but she's actually talking about Starfleet like that.
Yeah.
You know, Starfleet is like a child that doesn't know the value of $1, which is advanced, but it's also, you know, we would look at it as irresponsible.
Which one?
Starfleet for not knowing the value of $1.
Yeah, if you're a proper capitalist, that is.
But in the future, the capitalists are irresponsible. Isn't that wild?
Well, I mean, if you have replicators, things change around a little,
Yeah, right.
little bit.
By definition.
Especially if you can replicate a whole outpost and just flomp it down onto the planet's surface.
Have they discussed whether you can replicate phasers or not? I'm sure like maybe there's other rules on that.
Oh, I'm sure there's rules. I think the impression that we've gotten over the years is that unless you're like senior staff or something, there's probably sort of limitations on which replicator patterns you can have. There's certainly a thing they've played around with on Lower Decks, talking about like for the food replicators, how the senior staff get access to a broader range of recipes.
Yeah,
It's kind of hilarious.
And not just all nachos.
Yeah.
Right, they had some like I want to say lobster cobbler, but that's not a thing.
Oh no, lobster cobbler! I don't know. Our Twitter friend Zandera, Kara, she might like lobster cobbler.
Lobster cobbler. They were talking about something with kind of like a burnt, like a toasted baked crust on the top, not burnt, but like a baked, like one of those macaroni.
Wasn't it lobster macaroni?
Maybe it was lobster. I prefer lobster cobbler.
Lobster cobbler
with some
I'm
crab.
gonna call that.
I do recall one of the other things
Crab
was
mustard cream.
I think the senior staff could replicate a whole pizza, but they could only the Lower Decks could only get like pizza by the slice. I think
That's a bummer, man.
it is a bummer.
I thought there was no scarcity in the future.
Well, it's not okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to open up this whole
it's
thing.
It's not a whole thing.
I'm not complaining.
No, because it's relevant to this particular episode to a degree, which is, you have this Alito class of robot AI ships. And they're just replicating a bunch of shit and just plopping it down on the planet, which was played for humor, but it's also, okay, where is it getting those resources? How do they compare to a regular ship? You do have to have mass of some sort, right, to pull that from. In the regular old starship, when it comes to the food, you always imagine or presume, or they sometimes directly state that, you replicate the food, you eat it, you poop it out, it gets recycled. Your clothes.
Discovery flat out said that. Yeah.
Your clothes.
Yeah, you eat
your
poop.
Clothes get recycled.
You wear poop. You wear people's poop, and
any kind
you
of
eat
mass
people's clothes.
in theory, right? Any kind of mass,
Right.
but you still have to have some mass to work with to replicate stuff, and it takes energy, so you need some sort of energy production thing.
I wonder how many molecules it takes to make mass stinky like poop.
Oh, I thought you were going to make sort of a much more benign and wholesome joke about sort of how many molecules it takes to get to the middle of a Tootsie Pop.
Oh yeah, no.
3.
That too.
1, 2, 3.
Yes.
3.
Mr. Owl, how many bites or licks?
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Owlerson. Get it? The Matrix?
Yeah, there's a parody I want to see.
Get it? And the Tootsie Pop Owl?
So are we still talking about replicators?
I don't know. Sure, whatever.
So what they were saying, Badgie was the code for. So like, okay, first of all, Rutherford was super impressed by the Titan class, Texas class code, which turns out he was really excited about his own code.
Yeah.
He was like, "This is great code."
Intellectually masturbatory.
Yeah. Then we find out that it's being run by the Badgie AI, right?
Basically, yeah.
And then, but what were
It's the same AI that led the Badgie. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they were saying that the ship had daddy issues, did Badgie have daddy issues? Where was that the whole point? Was Badgie was pissed at Rutherford or something?
Yeah, it was sort of this
him?
typical creator, fighting your creator.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Getting mad at your creator because you're like a teenager.
Yeah.
Teenager AI.
Yeah.
You gotta get mad.
Yeah.
Got to destroy your creator, otherwise you don't like exist yet. Mm-hmm. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was a very different episode of Pinocchio where he kind of destroyed Geppetto to become real.
Freeman, I noticed, was really tolerant of Buen Amigo the whole episode. She kept apologizing to him, like when they were talking about when she was talking about how the Texas class, when the Alito didn't do the micro scan for the microorganisms to find out if there's microsentience on the planet,
Microcenter.
And she was like, I'm sorry, Admiral Buen Amigo, I'm gonna have to bring this up to the council, and she's all apologizing.
Well,
So
they're supposedly old friends.
yeah, but he's like basically
like family
relationship.
friends. Yeah.
They are, but that's not how he's behaving. He's like basically laughing about putting her out of work the whole episode, and she's just and she's apologizing to him.
I agree.
She's
It's weird.
definitely taking the high road. I'll say that.
I can understand. Again, this is one of those things where maybe if this were an hour-long episode, or 43 minutes or whatever, maybe they would have had a little bit more time to, over the course of the last couple episodes, to kind of make that relationship fluff out that relationship,
Fluff out the relationship.
whatever the best term is for that.
Flesh out.
Flesh out. Flesh out. Flesh out.
Flesh the fluff.
Flesh.
I want to fluff that flesh. I want to fluff that flesh.
It got worse.
I want to fluff
Oh, no.
that flesh.
Yeah, Dan is in rare form tonight. I could probably it's because Jesse's not here, and normally Jesse's sitting across from Dan, and there's sort of like Jesse's like exuding a sort of like try not to talk too much about
Dan
buttholes.
God, you're right. I am kind of talking a lot, but I
mean,
thought-
I'm fine with it. It's a change of pace.
But that'd be a good song, right? That goes like, I want to fluff that flesh. I want to fluff that flesh. I want to fluff that flesh.
You want to fluff that flesh.
I want to fluff that flesh.
You could. Well, you are the musician here. You have the skills to create that song.
I can't put
You
the
could
beat
do it
and
before
say,
next week, and we could premiere it on the episode.
I want to fluff that flesh.
Yeah. All right.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
I smell a YouTube virus all over it.
You mean
Viral video.
I was gonna say YouTube virus. Jesus
Oh
Christ.
shit, that was much more threatening than I meant.
Yeah, it's like that.
Was.
Okay. Any last bits and pieces about this episode? Any odds and ends? Any things that you wanted to mention? Either of you, Tarek? Anything you wanted to mention that we haven't gotten to yet?
The training montage of them getting ready, featuring how to properly do the Riker maneuver and step over the chair.
Yes,
Really-
yes, yeah. Freeman did the Picard maneuver the episode before with the pulling down the Chinook, and then there was the Riker maneuver. This one,
Granted, there are of course two Picard maneuvers, right? There's the meta Picard maneuver, which is the pulling down of the shirt. And there's the in-universe Picard maneuver, which is, again, not to open up the whole thing about warp dynamics, but it's where
not that again.
It's where you warp quickly from one place to another, a short distance, so that briefly, because of how the real universe works, it looks like there's two versions of the ship, and the enemy doesn't know where to fire.
Yeah,
That's the Picard maneuver. Now, it shouldn't actually work with what we know about Star Trek.
it's kind of
warping.
hilarious that that's an actual maneuver. It's like that situation comes up all the time.
Well, okay. First of all, it's cool because that's kind of like how it would work if you could travel faster than light.
Yeah, but like, how often are you going to find yourself?
But it doesn't
like,
really make sense with the way Star Trek has described how you travel faster than light. And if it did work, no offense, Picard, you're very clever. People have been warping around for like 200 years at that point. I'm pretty sure somebody would have figured that out before.
You shoot the closer one.
In fact, some motherfuckers in the 1980s figured that shit out who were amateur astronomer types. And so it doesn't seem that complicated to figure out. But anyway, Picard maneuver. But yeah, I like the Riker maneuver. I like Ransom doing it and pulling it off very well.
When they were all freaking out near the beginning, why was Tana holding one of those sexy smacking sticks? Like that they have like bondage S&M, like the little whip with the little leather slap at the little leather slip. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but used for a riding crop.
Right, that's the proper usage of it. Okay, that's I know.
That's not the Dan usage of it.
Yes,
That's
right.
the proper usage.
Yeah, you're right.
Was she? I don't remember that. She had a riding crop. Was she wearing like a riding helmet and outfit, or
No.
she just had the riding crop?
Yeah, so it was all
She also didn't have her own saddle like any real rider would.
Yeah,
Picard has told us. But she did have her own whip.
What was the content? How did I miss that? I watched this episode like 3 times, and
It's when Miggly Moo and Tendi were talking.
Miggly Moo says something about. He says tells her not to be a cantaloupe, but be a cantaloupe.
I was distracted by how much I was charmed by that, because we mentioned last week that Miggly Moo didn't make any food related analogies. So this week he brought that back. So that's what. Okay, well, gives me an excuse to watch the episode for a 4th time, so I can see Tendi and her riding crop. For purely
Ta'ana. Yeah, Tendi had a blue drink, and then Boimler had like a Cosmo. There was that one scene where they at
like
the
a
bar,
Cosmopolitan.
He had like a pink drink. It looked like a Cosmopolitan.
Is a Cosmopolitan like cranberry juice, vodka, or something?
Yeah, basically. I think you can put lime.
Could you name a drink that's better than a Cosmopolitan?
I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I guess it depends on which. Yeah, what do you like?
Huh?
What do you like? I mean,
I like a dark and stormy.
Why
ginger beer with dark rum?
I mean,
twist of lime.
Cosmo is whatever. Like,
you know what I really like?
I've never ordered a Cosmopolitan.
I really like a Sazerac.
Okay.
And if Jesse were here, he would join in on the love for us.
Back in my earlier days, I enjoyed. There was a brief period where I was like, Rusty Nails are really good, which is like Scotch and Drambuie or something. Which is like it's like an old person's drink, but it was like pure alcohol, but it tasted good.
Look, it's Sazerac is similar because it's like absinthe
But that was a long time ago. That was in previous days.
Last chance for any little bits and pieces. I can't think of anything else. I really enjoyed the episode. I'm looking forward to the future 4th season, which I guess we'll have to wait till next summer to start, but I'm excited for it. Oh, but in the intervening time, we do know there's going to be a crossover with Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. It's going to be on the 2nd season of Strange New Worlds, which we presume quite likely will occur before the next season of Lower Decks. So that's probably the next time we'll see at least a couple of our Lower Decks favorites will be on Strange New Worlds in some bizarre animation, live action, hybrid action.
I like that Freeman said something about she was trying to trap the AI in a logic spiral.
Yeah.
Which is like your classic maneuver. Where
Rutherford's like, no.
We safeguard against paradoxes, which I thought that was underrated comment, as they say on Reddit.
That ties back to your favorite of, do you want to destroy the board with a picture?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Right. Through paradoxes, you can commit genocide like Picard did. Right. Which is one of the most defining moments of TNG, according to me.
Yes, sure. from I Borg.
That's right.
I kept saying like I Robot.
Attack pattern Delta, for all I could tell, just amounts to everyone shoots at once. That's what attack pattern Delta seemed to be.
That's what most Star Trek attack patterns are. Everyone shoot.
Everyone just shoot.
There was the classic, I'm beaming out, the phaser is just going to miss me.
Yes.
Yeah.
When Mariner's escaping from the Ferengi, who were very original Ferengi-ish.
Was that in this episode?
Not having.
Yes, they were very human. Yeah,
right.
When she was.
They just were missing the energy whips. That's all they were missing, and they would have been the last outpost.
Right.
She had that Klingon idol. It looked Klingon-ish. Yeah. I know it wasn't stated, but to me it looked like a Klingon idol, but which of course was very Raiders of the Lost Ark-ish. I guess that's the only thing I'll say is I like what they did with the story. Now that they've done it, I think it's good that they've closed down that Mariner bit and all that. But I liked seeing her doing some archaeological adventure stuff, and that was kind of fun.
All I was gonna say is that Tlin, we mentioned that. I'm glad. I like that they're pairing with Tendi of all people.
That's going to be a fun
classic.
Pairing.
It's going to be a classic pairing. I did record all the ships' names. If you wanted me to.
Yes. I was going to remind you. One of the most fun gags, but it was kind of like a tearjerker, which is when they called in all the California class ships. So that was just sort of like a great scene just in general. Again, a little bit implausible is like, why are those the only ships that are showing up other than that one Sovereign class ship that showed up? I forget what the name was.
The Van Sitters, which is
the Van Sitters.
Someone at Paramount, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. But all the California class ships coming in, I thought that was great. But when they started listing off all the names of the California cities, including many of them which are just sort of very small towns, It was charming. And Dan, I think Dan has the full list for us.
There are about 20 plus names, which is interesting because it's essentially a 20 plus ships up against 3 Texas class. Those Texas class ships, I'm assuming, are more powerful than your average. Presumably. Because
Dan is going to go through this list with efficiency and alacrity.
I was about to, but now you said that, now you make me want to be really all inefficient about it.
No, but he is going to be a professional. And he's going to overcome any sort of personal issues he might have.
Now you're making me nervous. Like I'm going to come
and
across.
That was against one Texas ship. That's
true. Yeah, good point, Tarek. It was at the end. It was only the one Texas ship, the Texas class, because the other two got blowed up.
They got blowed up. So I'm going to get to like one of these
by the Shax maneuver.
You make me think that I'm going to get to one of these and just fall apart for some reason.
No,
okay,
I think you'll
it's
be fine.
Alhambra, the San Diego, the San Clemente, the Sherman Oaks, the Vacaville, the Burbank.
I've been through Vacaville.
The Fresno, Santa Monica, San Jose.
The Santa Monica.
That means saint. Sacramento, Culver City, Anaheim, Riverside.
Is this okay? Why are you pronouncing it all weird?
Vallejo, West Covina, Pacific Palisades, Redding, Eureka. Sorry, Eureka. This bit's not working anymore.
No, it wasn't working from the beginning. I stayed in Eureka. Eureka is way fucking north.
You remember that show? It's Eureka's Castle.
I drove from San Francisco to Seattle and drove all day and drove for like 9 hours from San Francisco and was still in fucking California. And I stayed the night in Eureka at a Best Western. It's right by the county. What's the county with all the weed? You know, where the weed grows?
Marijuana County?
Yeah, Marijuana County, in Northern California.
I remember when I drove to California through Arizona, actually, Tarek, I did go visit Arizona a couple of times, and I went up to California, and they had a sign that said they were going to like confiscate your fruit and vegetables, basically, which I didn't know.
Your fruit and veg?
I think they just said
twig and berries?
fruit, but I thought they only did that.
Your twig and berries?
I didn't know they did that at state lines, and I'm guessing at only certain parts of the state line. Anyways, back at the Eureka, now we're at Mount Shasta, Merced, Carlsbad, and Inglewood.
Yeah,
the Inglewood is made.
Isn't that where Jules and Vincent? Jules or Vincent? One of them lives.
It's apparently where
Pulp Fiction.
It's apparently where they're up to no good. So according to Dr. Dre, Inglewood had Bolians. That was the Bolian ship, and there was a very confusing ship we don't know the name of, which had the Bug Boimler, and the Yellow-Eyed Mariner with the dots, and the Shax with the makeup and breasts, and the Ransom. Ransom had some weird mustache, and then there was a bunch of mustaches. Freeman had a mustache, and Tahana was a human with a mustache. I didn't know what was going on there, but I loved it.
That was a callback to a previous visual joke, where there was a California class ship where the crew had very similar counterparts.
Well, it was funny. We didn't get the name of the ship because like they just buzzed. So it was whatever that ship was. Yeah. So,
all right.
All right. Oh, and when Rutherford got his glasses, Rutherford got his glasses back. He was looking at people with those infrared and the bones. And
that one creature had a double spine.
There was I
forget which type of, was it a Rigelian or something like that? I don't know.
Well, I noticed that only a few of them were following the rules of his. There was a crowd of people and only a few of them.
Well, you can select. I guess mentally select.
Mentally select.
The ones in the foreground seem to be the ones that had
the foreground.
Seems reasonable enough to me.
Wonder how you'd make that decision.
All right.
Save processing power somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think that does it for this week, and for the entire season of Lower Decks. It was a good one. Next week, we don't know what we're discussing. Prodigy has started. We'll probably wait till the end of the season and maybe do like a season 1 spectacular or something for Prodigy to discuss that. So next week, I don't know, maybe Deep Space Nine or something.
DS9's always fun.
Probably a Deep Space Nine episode.
Should we do a fun episode?
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
The baseball episode?
Oh man,
I don't know if there's a lot to say about that episode.
I mean, maybe. But we'll look. Probably Deep Space Nine, but maybe not. We'll see. But what you can do as an audience member.
Why are you giving them homework?
It's not homework. It's helpful advice. Life advice. If they are interested in seeing what we are going to be discussing next week, now that the the Lower Decks has ended, what you could do is you can follow us on Twitter, and which is getting more complicated by the day, but at least for now, we're still on Twitter.
There's going to be a new network owned by the former Twitter guys, apparently, or something.
We'll see if everyone on the Star Trek Twitter moves over to some other place. We'll build up
your stocks of Dogecoin so you can like pay per tweet with the new Elon Musk owned Twitter. For the time being. You can find us on Twitter at It's Got Star Trek, and we of course announce what we're going to be discussing well in advance on Twitter. Also on Instagram, Facebook. You can get the podcast on YouTube. You can always check out www.itsgotstartrek.com. That's the website. You can get all our stuff there. Just sort stuff. What I like about the website, Dan. You know what I like about the website, Dan? I have an idea.
How about you, Tarek? Do you know what I like?
I think I know what you like, yeah.
I think both of you know what I like.
I know what you like.
Which is I like to sort the episodes by series.
Yeah, you do.
I like to be able to say
amazing feature.
Let's see what the It's Got Star Trek boys have to say about the animated series, and you can click on it, and then it's just lists those.
You know what I like?
What do you like?
When you take like a nice big spicy sausage, and you slice it up,
and it's all this slicing,
and you put it on pizza, and you dip the pizza in red sauce. Right. That's what I like.
No, I can't. I don't.
Full circle.
I don't. By the way, I don't think you've ever dipped pizza in red sauce.
It's happened. Maybe
I don't think.
Maybe
so.
I have. I've gotten too excited because when they give you the sauce, he give me to watch. He give me to watch.
Oh my
when
gosh.
they give you the sauce for the breadsticks, I've been known to take the red sauce and dip my pizza in instead. But I don't let anyone see because that makes them really mad because they're like, "That's for the breadstick, not the pizza."
Okay, I don't believe you, but okay.
Oh, you don't believe? You know what I hate when you say something and someone doesn't believe me.
Hey, you didn't believe me when I said I'd never watched an episode of Friends.
Yeah. Oh, you're still mad about that one.
I'm not mad. I was a little put off. I've just never seen an episode of Friends. It never appealed to me. But Dan was all I was in. It was just in a private chat that we were in a group chat, and then I just mentioned, I was like, "Oh yeah, I've never seen an episode of Friends." And Dan was just like, "No, you're a fucking liar. You're a piece of shit liar." I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along those lines.
Was there something opposite of paraphrasing? But
yeah,
when you extra phrase it,
solo phrasing,
when it longify phrasing it. Well, one time it reminds me of
exaggerating it.
Longifying it. For paraphrasing is shortenifying it. Well, I was in
not necessarily.
I was
in just rephrasing it.
I was in 4th grade, and Double Dragon 2 from Nintendo Entertainment System came out, and I bought it. And some kids in class were talking about Double Dragon 2, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got that recently." And the kid turned to me, he's just like, "I don't believe you."
Yeah.
I said, "What? What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't believe you." I was like, "Why not? I got it." He's like, "I don't know. I just don't believe you." And it was like the most hurtful thing.
And you kicked his ass.
No, of course not.
All right. Okay. Well, we've given you all the information that we need to give you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much for joining us.
I spied on
Tarek on our 156th episode.
156th episode.
Congratulations on 3 full years. Of this wonderful.
Yeah, plus a few bonus episodes and stuff. Anyway, all right. So
those who have gotten to there, we've heard this before.
Yeah. So we will be back with some sort of Star Trek nonsense around this time next week. So until then, have a good one. And with that, we'll say goodbye.
Oh man, I wonder how the bridge crew's taking it.
Dr. Sa'ana's probably like, holy f***ing shit, I'm a doctor, not an asshole.